Comic Book Savant, Comic Sense, Recommended Reads. Welcome back to the Comic Book Savant podcast. I'm your host, James Harris. This episode, we're going to be doing a recommended reads, and I just thought, because we've heard so many rumblings and rumors about the Fantastic Four, that I would talk about and recommend some trade paperbacks or collections that you can pick up to get some backstory and history about the Fantastic Four, because as we know, they're the first family of comics and they're vital to the history of Marvel Comics and just comics in general. So I thought they would be a good selection for this episode of Recommended Reads. So before we get into the episode, as always, I'd like to give a shout out to you guys and thank you so much for your support. I could not do the podcast without you guys. And if you have a moment, if you haven't, or it's been a long time since you have, if you could do me a favor and if you can go over to iTunes and you can rate the podcast and leave some comments about that. I haven't really asked for it in a while. Hadn't really thought about it because I've been so focused on the content, but it helps get the podcast out there and get more eyes on the podcast and ears on the podcast. So if you can take a moment to do that, I would greatly appreciate it. But without any further ado, let's jump into this list of recommended reads for the Fantastic Four. The first collection that I want to recommend, and for this episode, luckily, because there were so many of them, when I was trying to research how you can get the most bang for your buck to get some history on the Fantastic Four, I landed on the Epic collections because they're relatively on the inexpensive side when you find them online. Now, if you find them retail, Epic collections can run about $40 to $45, but on average, you normally get 400, sometimes even 500 pages of content in them. So you do get a lot of bang for your buck if you were going to buy, let's say, Marvel Masterworks and things like that. They're just as expensive and you get way less issues per. So if you don't mind a more soft cover, thicker collection, the Epic collections are normally the way to go to get a lot of comic value for your money. So the first Epic collection I want to recommend is Fantastic Four Epic Collection, the world's greatest comic magazine. And this collects Fantastic Four issues 1 through 18. So right there, you're getting a huge chunk of issues right from the beginning, which if you try to find those individually, of course, they're super expensive. Or if you find them at other collections, they're going to be way more expensive. And a lot of times, and one recommendation I could say, a lot of times sites like Comixology has sales. Marvel has sales through Comixology, multiple a week. A lot of times they'll pick a particular character or team and they'll have sales where you can get these Epic collections for, under $10. Or like I said, normally they run, $40 to $45 retail. You can get these from, anywhere as cheap as $5 to maybe as expensive as $9.99. So you can really rack up. So now the thing about the Epic collections, and if you don't know what an Epic collection is, my spinner rack bro, Heath Holland, did a great video talking about Epic collections and really breaking down what they are. So if you go over to his YouTube channel, Serial at Midnight, he did a long video breaking down the Epic collections and what they exactly entail, and he could do a better job than me trying to do it in this episode. So if you haven't, I will try to remember on the website for this episode posting to find that video and have a link to it in there if you want to check it out. It's a really great breakdown if you're unfamiliar with Epic collections. He's the one that kind of tipped me onto them. I didn't even know they were a thing till I watched that video, and then I've been obsessed with them ever since. So again, Epic collection. This is Epic collection for the Fantastic Four #1. They print them out of sequence, so they don't go in sequential order like how they're released. So luckily, because the Fantastic Four is one of the first Epic collections they did, you can find the first few. So if you wanted to start from the beginning and go through, you should be able to find them relatively easy. So Epic collection #2 on my recommended list is Fantastic Four Epic Collection, The Master Plan of Dr. Doom. This picks up where the first one leaves off. leaves off, and it collects Fantastic Four issues 19 through 32 in annuals 1 and 2. The next one would be the next one in sequence, which would be the Fantastic Four Epic Collection, The Coming of Galactus. This collects Fantastic Four issues 31 through 51 in annual 3. Now I want to jump ahead to a little bit more modern, because I figured the first 50 issues or so will give you the crux of the foundation of what made the Fantastic Four. So those 3 epic collections are relatively easy to find if you're looking for them digitally. Sometimes they go out of print. Marvel does a good job, at least with the first volume of any epic collection for any hero or team. They try to keep it evergreen, which means they try to keep that first volume always in print, so they won't stay out of print rotation, or out of print for too long without them refreshing it and making sure it's more on the store shelves. Now, excuse me, if you try to find other volumes along the way, like I said, they're printed out of sequence. So like if they start a run, they might start with volume 1 for, say, excuse me, like a team like X Factor, because that's a perfect example of one I've realized recently. So X Factor volume 1 came out, then they did like volume 3 or 4, but I think they're getting ready to release soon volume 2. So certain ones are newer in rotation. They start with like the classic Foundation heroes. Those have more volumes, and you can get, if you want to go through sequentially and get volume 1, 2, 3, you're more likely to find them. But finding them in print can be tricky, and sometimes you have to do your research. Now, digitally, because they're digital, you can always find them. I tend to wait till they go on sale through, like I said, through Comixology, and I will scoop them up for $4 or $5. I've been obsessively collecting them since I learned about them. Before the Epic collections, they were essential collections that were similar to Epic, but they were on low grade paper and they were just black and white. With Epic collections, they're higher quality grade paper, and they're actually colored pages, and they have kind of a glossy page, where essentials were just kind of newsprint. So it's like they've upgraded what the concept was of an essential into Epic collection. Next selection for this recommended reads would be Fantastic Four Epic Collection Into the Time Stream. This collects Fantastic Four issues 334 through 346 with annual 23 and material from New Mutants annual 6, X Factor annual 5, and X-Men annual 14. This is more in the heyday when I was in my early years into comics, probably like I was around 9, 10, 11-ish range, and I was super into the Fantastic Four. So this is kind of the heyday of when I was younger, me getting into comics. So I thought this would be these were really fun stories. They crossed over with a lot of different other factions, like you hear in this one, a lot of X-Men stuff. I think this was around the time that they did the miniseries in the 80s, the X-Men versus Avengers. X-Men versus Fantastic Four. They did a lot of verses like in the early to mid 80s. They did Avengers versus X-Men. X-Men was fighting everybody. X-Men versus Fantastic Four. So I think it's somewhere around that range. Good story. So that's why I recommended that Epic collection. And last but not least, I recommended Fantastic Four Epic Collection Strange Days. This collects Fantastic Four issues 403 through 416, Fantastic Four The Legend, Onslaught Marvel Universe, and material from Tales from the Marvel Universe. So I wanted to give you kind of, a good variety. And mind you, you might think this is a short list. I could do more episodes if you got your guys or want more recommended reads. I wanted to give you a good variety. In these Epic collections, mind you, they are 400 plus, sometimes 500 plus pages a pop. So I'm giving you a lot of content to read through. If you pick any or all of these up, it will keep you busy for a while. So I thought it would be a good start. Epic collections are relatively easy, like I said, to pick up, and they give you a lot of bang for your buck across the board. Onslaught in this range for this Epic collection is around the Onslaught time. This is before we got the reset, and they the core Marvel universe turning to the kind of, they had the Image guys come back and do the stuff here. This was leading up to that, before that whole reset to when they rebooted with Heroes Reborn and went from there. So I figured this would be a good endpoint for like phase one of a Fantastic Four recommended reads, because everything is from the beginning, ending, closing off around that point. And if you want me to do a further or another recommended reads on Fantastic Four, we'll pick up from after Heroes Reborn, after Onslaught and Heroes Reborn, or from Heroes Reborn on to current day. And I'll recommend more books and trades for you guys to check out as well. Like I said, I hadn't done a recommended reads episode like this in a little bit, so I thought it would be cool to revisit the recommended reads episodes and do one on the First Family. And the Fantastic Four is a comic that I've always gravitated to from a child, just the family concept. And they were unique from other super teams because they were literally family, and they had real life struggles and that they had to go through and deal with one another. So that always just appealed to me and made me attached to those characters. But funny enough, I like Reed Richards the least. I've always loved Sue Storm, Johnny Storm, and Ben more than Reed. He always seemed attached. But just the concept of the team as overall, I've always dug them. So I figured this would be a good way to kick recommended reads back off. I hope to do more of these. Let me know if you have any suggestions. You can always hit me up, comicbooksavant@gmail.com. You can also hit me up on Facebook. The page is facebook.com/comicbooksavant. And you can just go to the website, comicbooksavant.com. You can email me anytime. I have a form right there that you can email me directly if you have feedback, if you have recommendations of things you want me to cover, or hey, I have an idea for recommended reads, or hey, could you review this movie? I'm totally open. And we also have the Facebook group as well, the Comic Book Savant Society, where I have open conversations with you guys that are members there about things that I'm going to cover, things that I'm thinking about doing. And you guys can, say, hey, throw out suggestions to me as well. I'm always totally open to feedback on where we take the show. I'd like it to be a collaborative process, not just things that I want to do, but things that you want to hear from me. So, take advantage of that. Because like I said, I like to do content that you want to hear, not just things that I want to cover. I think and a lot of times they overlap. So you guys will bring something to my attention that I might have thought about a long time ago, but thought you might not be interested in. So until you tell me, I don't 100% know. So if you have a moment, do that. That's all I have for you guys for this episode. As always, I hope everyone's staying safe out there. Until next week, you guys take care, and I will talk to you soon.